Good afternoon, YouTube. This is a great clip by Steven Crowder on Twitter censorship, and I believe it was in excess of 130,000 fake addresses that were made in Georgia. Thank you for watching.
Kyle Becker, formerly I think he was at Fox News, pundit, the People's Pundit Project is where he works. He was reporting in Georgia that in Georgia, 132,000 change of address red flags in Fulton County. So in one county, these votes are highly likely and eligible to vote and have moved. They've moved their location per source, meaning they probably don't live there anymore. And Biden, of course, says that Georgia leads by 10,000 votes. This should be enough to be a game changer. Here's what's interesting. If you look at that tweet, can you bring it back up really quickly? Right there, it says this tweet is disputed, or what this claim about election fraud is disputed, says Twitter. By the way, they still haven't disputed. Did they dispute the New York Times and people saying, oh, no, actually Pfizer was not, Pfizer was never associated with Operation Warp Speed? That's something that you can verifiably prove to be false. This is a statement someone makes. Mike Pence, vice president, said, didn't have to do with warp speed. It just takes a couple of fingers. Even if you have a guy with stubs, he can just speak and spell into his computer and find out that it's true. No dispute on Twitter, a dispute on this. So I thought, well, you know what? I know that Kyle. I've met Kyle Becker once or twice. Oh, wow, really? I don't know him very well, but from what I understand, he's done some pretty good work. And I thought, well, you know what? He must be lying. Oh. Because Twitter says so.
Twitter
they would Twitter say so. And so I decided it's a dispute, and then you click on that little link in dispute to read an article that fact checks it. And so again, remember, the fact check should be on 132,000 change of addresses in Georgia, because that's what he's claiming.
Yeah, you'd expect.
So I clicked on the dispute, the fact check, and this is what it is. It just says, voter fraud of any kind is exceedingly rare in the U.S. I'll read you the whole thing. Election experts confirm. This is the fact check. With ballot counting continuing and the presidential race being called for Joe Biden, experts and officials say there has been no evidence of widespread voter fraud in the 2020 U.S. election. The election process is secure, and voter fraud of any type is incredibly rare, according to the Associated Press and Reuters. Remember they did the fake flotilla to try and make it seem like the Israelis were stabbing Palestinians? They cropped the picture.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Point is, a pieces of shit. Officials and experts warn that the most interference in U.S. elections, whether from foreign or domestic players, comes in the form of misinformation campaigns, many of which are intended to create distrust in the United States electoral process. But here's the thing. I just read the entire fact check.
Right. There's no page 2?
What about the 132,000 votes in Georgia? That's the claim.
Yeah. Right.
A fact check is verifying that the fact that was claimed is false. You're checking the fact. This could have been written 20 years ago. Yeah. Election fraud is rare. I would agree. It's generally rare. That's why this is a story. That's why Kyle Becker is saying, hey, election fraud is and should be rare, but we have a discrepancy of 132,000 votes. Yeah. That's what we call, I know it burns for you to say, AP, news.
Yeah, it's like somebody reporting on the French Revolution and then somebody fact-check.
So, there's his spiel. It's really funny to watch Crowder most of the time. I like to think of him as what Dane Cook should have been like if he continued being a comedian. But no, this is a very serious allegation. Let's go back to the actual tweet. Which was brilliant. Kyle Becker, so 132,000 change of addresses, a red flag in Fulton County, Georgia. So that exceeds the amount by more than 10 times the difference in which Joe Biden leads that state. So that's very promising. There was a whole ton of these pieces of evidence all over the place. And then if I could just direct your attention to this piece here at the beginning, Steven Crowder was commenting on the press conference that was done to essentially explain to the public what was going on with, let's call it, the voter fraud. And so what happened is Fox News actually cut her off in the middle of, well, she wasn't even permitted to give evidence. Here, just watch.
Listen, rightfully so. I have a follow-up right after. Watch what happened.
We want an honest, accurate, lawful count. We want maximum sunlight. We want maximum transparency. We want every legal vote to be counted, and we want every illegal vote to be.
I just think we have to be very clear that she's charging the other side is welcoming fraud and welcoming illegal voting. Unless she has more details to back that up, I can't in good countenance continue showing you this. I want to make sure that maybe they do have something to back that up, but that's an explosive charge to make, that the other side is effectively rigging and cheating.
Now, it may seem in poor taste, but some actually believe this was a glorified PR stunt for Baby Geniuses 3. This time it's petulant, which does seem, it's not disservice when you cut away from her doing exactly what you're accusing her of not doing. This is 45 seconds later.
Allow me to just broadly review 3 points that have happened in Pennsylvania. Number one, in Philadelphia, poll watchers who are legally permitted to be there and observe the vote count were blocked from observing the count. Second, Article 1, Section 4 of the United States Constitution clearly states this: the time, place, and manner of holding elections for senators and representatives shall be prescribed in each state by the legislature thereof. That's right, the state legislature is constitutionally the one making the decision. But the Supreme Court of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Kathy Boockvar, and the Democrat-tilted Pennsylvania Supreme Court have continually disregarded the Constitution, making decisions clearly in the domain of the Pennsylvania legislator. And finally, a mere survey of the facts shows that voters in blue counties like Philadelphia County were given certain privileges that voters in red counties were not afforded. The Constitution's Equal Protection Clause requires uniform standards, but Democrat election officials created disparities depending on where citizens lived and where they voted in the state.
Now, I don't want to be conspiratorial because, like I said, Neil Cavuto was always very nice with me, and I hope, listen, Mr. Cavuto, thank you for the opportunities that you provided me. I don't know if these orders are coming from the top down.
Yeah.
But if you are a news agency and you say, well, those are pretty big allegations, if she offers it, and you cut away, how do you think that serves your audience?
That's right.
This is an entertainment show. When people say, like, you're the only show I watch, I go, no! Watch other shows, too! That's bad. For example, there is no Baby Geniuses 3. That's a lie.
Oh, no.
Was once referred to as a joke. But
That's a movie.
it shouldn't be your
That's
own
a lie.
show. But the fact that we are providing context on both sides, we own our biases, and then we say, by the way, this is what both sides are saying, and this is why this side sucks. How does Neil Cavuto justify that? How does Fox News justify that? I'm done with this guy.
They should definitely.
So I'm thinking, like, that's exactly right. The point that they're trying to make is that they need to report the news without their bias, and I mean it's obvious that they're trying to suppress the press conference and basically disregard what Kayleigh says right out of hand, and shut her down. So anyways, I don't want to get too much into the opinionated stuff because, I couldn't have said it better than the way that Crowder said it right there. But I'm thinking that every day they're gaining a little bit of ground. So that's very promising to me. My hope is that Georgia will get flipped again accurately to the correct count once the pseudo ballots, you could say, are fully accounted for and disregarded. I wanted to add one other point, which was the point of watching this particular video in the first place, which is that Bill Barr will be opening a full investigation into the voter fraud. And though the actual statement, I like William Barr a lot. This is a man that follows the letter of the law. So he's not going to be running a partisan investigation. This thing will be as neutral as it gets, impartial as it gets. And so that's another piece of hope that we have. William Barr certainly has his attention what's going on in the States right now with all the voter fraud. And I don't know what kind of power the Attorney General has to overturn certain, how can I say it? I guess overturn the decisions in certain states, or has the power to to order a recount or a revote, but I'd be perfectly fine with something like an outcome like that happening, as long as there's no need for a revote, as long as all the phony ballots are accounted for and disregarded. That's my point. And as I was saying earlier, like, I mean, I can't believe that for a second that in states where Trump was essentially leading by over a tremendous amount of votes, and all of a sudden, after they shut down the polls, that Joe Biden was able to make up the difference. So it means that every one of the votes that were submitted under the polls after they shut down was all for Joe Biden. And I mean, the percentages of people that live in those states, statistically, it doesn't make sense. At least some of those votes should have counted for Trump. So it's an overwhelming, inaccurate description of reality. So you have to, I would say to my fellow conservative Americans out there, that you must have hope. This thing is opening up, and I hope it keeps opening up. And the more that we'll see, the less that the press will be able to ignore it. And even if they do, which I believe now that they will completely ignore it, and they will try to force Joe Biden into the White House one way or another. But if litigation were to come forward, then we have to see whether or not the press is stronger or the law is stronger. And fundamentally, I believe this is war, because that clash of the Democrats feel they could always get away with it, so that can't happen. And the line has to be drawn at a certain point, and either they're going to obey the law that's been put down and they will legitimize the election correctly, or they'll get away with voter fraud, and Biden will become president. So for me, it's a tremendous, it's a very unique stage of history that we're living right now, because it's absolutely imperative that this election be scrutinized and then the proper count is made. Otherwise, free elections in the U.S. can disappear, and this is the evidence. So thank you for watching, and goodbye.